history of the Middle East can be read in a single line: humiliation and the revolutions of dignity it produces. This is the pattern again and again and again. Empires arrive with power, with certainty, with hubris, and they make the same mistake. They think humiliation produces submission. It doesn't. It produces something else: defiance. And Donald Trump, with his arrogance, his ignorance, his intoxication with power, doesn't just fail to understand this. He activates it. He stirs a deep historical reservoir. Modern Iran offers one of the most concentrated expressions of this dynamic. Colonial power meets the will to defy, and wounded dignity awakens, national, religious, intertwined. In 1892, a single ruling issued from Najaf in Iraq brought a country to a halt. Across Iran, people stopped smoking overnight in bazaars, in homes, even in the royal court. It wasn't really about tobacco. It was about national humiliation. A foreign monopoly had been imposed, an entire economy handed over, a nation reduced to a concession, and for the first time, it refused. That moment revealed something fundamental. A people bound by violated dignity can bring a system to its knees. By 1906, refusal became structure, the constitutional revolution, the Mashrute revolution, one of the earliest demands for accountable government in the modern Middle East. A parliament, a constitution, resistance becoming politics. Then came Mohammad Mossadegh. He nationalized Iran's oil. For a brief moment, sovereignty seemed possible. Then came the coup, the US, Britain, and the message was clear: independence would not be tolerated. So by 1979, the explosion was not sudden. It was accumulated history, humiliation, interference, subordination, again and again. The Islamic Revolution was not an anomaly. It was a consequence. To dismiss it as crazy mullahs is not analysis. It is historical illiteracy. And Iran was not alone. Across the region, the same pattern repeats. Humiliation doesn't produce obedience. It produces resistance, and it often speaks in the language of religion. Even those outside politics were not spared. Sufi otherworldly sects built on spiritual purification left their lodges, their shrines, their inward worlds, and became rebels. In Algeria, Emir Abdel Qadir, a mystic and scholar, turned in 1832 into the leader of a great national revolution against French occupation. In Libya, the Senussi spiritual lodges turned in 1903 into networks of resistance against Italian invasion. In Sudan, in 1843, Muhammad Ahmad al-Mahdi, a messiah-like figure, turned a religious movement into a national uprising against the British. In Morocco, in 1921, Abdel Karim al-Khattabi, a scholar and jurist, led the revolt, a mountain rebellion against French and Spanish domination. Even earlier in Cairo at Al-Azhar, the ulama, the scholars, rose as revolutionaries against Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion in 1798. Across Central Asia, Naqshbandi mystics, quiet, disciplined, left their lodges and took up arms against Imperial Russian expansion. And again in Iran, at Qum, Najaf, centers of scholarship became centers of political mobilization. What colonial expansion did, what marching armies did, was disrupt the quiet rhythms of ordinary Muslim life and turn them into explosive forces of resistance under one banner: defense of land, of honor and dignity. This is the history overlooked. A society shaped by repeated humiliation doesn't experience threats as isolated events. It remembers. And so pressure meant to fragment unifies. Threats meant to weaken and intimidate harden. The belief that violence produces submission is the oldest illusion of power. In this region, it doesn't work. It does the very opposite. Trump is bewildered. How can all his bullying, all his muscle flexing, all the military build-up, the colossal display of force, the threats not produce surrender? How? Well, because he doesn't know this region. He doesn't know its history. He sees it through the prisms of colonialism and Israel. Gaza, a tiny besieged strip of land, bombarded, starved, flattened, and still its people refuse to surrender. Lebanon, a small country, unsubdued despite overwhelming force. Why? It's not because their people possess some sort of mythical weapon or because they're lunatics. No, it's because something else runs through them. Dignity, the refusal to bow to arrogance, to domination, to bullying. This is the secret. A region that cannot be subdued by force, even if it appears to yield for a while, temporarily. That's only only surface skin. As the Tunisian poet Abul Qasim al-Shabi warned the French colonizer, beware, for beneath the ashes there is fire, and he who sows thorns shall reap wounds. In the Muslim world, humiliation doesn't end the story, it begins it.